This game is more than 1,000 years old, and odds are you've probably played a version of it. I'm talking, of course, about Trouble. Well, actually, I'm talking about Sorry. I'm actually talking about Ludo. Uh, all of these games can actually draw their origin to a game called Pachisi, which was invented in India sometime around the 6th century. Well, that's 1,500 years ago. Now, it wasn't a board game as we think of them today, as the game was played on a fabric mat with a distinctive cross-shaped racetrack woven into it. Instead of dice, players would cast cowrie shells to determine how far to move their pawns around the board, with the goal of getting all 4 of their pawns from their start space to their home space first. Now, the game rules stayed largely unchanged up until the late 19th century when it made its way over to Europe and was eventually patented by a man named Alfred Coller under the name Ludo. Now, as you can see, the distinctive cross-shaped racetrack on the board remains largely unchanged from the original Pachisi. However, one major change made at the time of the patent was to replace the cowrie shells with a single 6-sided die, and in the instance of Ludo in 1896, it also included a rolling cup to come with that die. Now, I have this reproduction from 1920 here that did not include a rolling cup, but does feature a nice board with some wooden meeples and, of course, our distinctive 6-sided die. And I gotta say, I'm actually infatuated with the art. This was from a company called Rearranged Games. I paid about $10 for this, and the art was worth it on its own. Now, this is a lift-off top box. The rules are printed on the underside of the lid, which, if you watch my show at all, you know this pleases the couch. But otherwise, Ludo sets don't need to be horribly ornate. As you can see, it's a pretty simple layout, so I was very satisfied with this edition of the game. Now, Ludo was wildly popular and spawned a number of derivative works throughout the 20th century. A notable one would have been Sorry, produced by Parker Brothers in 1935. Now, we can see with this Sorry board, they took the basic formula of Ludo. However, the racetrack has now been adapted and located around the outside periphery of the board. Players still start in a start space and navigate 4 pawns around the board back to their home space. Now you'll notice one major change are these slide zones that players can use to eliminate the opposition or get sweet revenge, as the game's later tagline would tout. Also, you'll notice that the die is no longer part of the game and has been replaced with a series of numbered cards. Now, in the early 20th century, it was quite common for a lot of games to avoid using dice due to their connotation as being a gambling tool. Now, when we move over to the 1960s, Irwin Toy had introduced a version of this game called Trouble. Again, we saw a racetrack around the outside of the board similar to Sorry. However, what made Trouble distinctive was its small plastic board with inset spots for the little player pegs and the distinctive Pop-O-Matic system. So there's a single die, Arab numerals, located in this Pop-O-Matic, and there's a little piece of metal, so when you depress the dome, the metal pops and it kicks the die up against the dome. So it rolls for you. 1, eliminating any possibility of cheating, and 2, adding a huge cool factor to the game. Now, you might think that this is the height of technology when it comes to the evolution of Ludo, but now that we're in the 21st century, Geeker has introduced Super Ludo, an electronic take on the classic game. Instead of a Pop-O-Matic in the center of the board, we now see a black crystal ball that supports an electronic random number generator for the dice. It also features a number of modifiers such as meteors, which can send your spacecraft pawns back to home. They also have wormholes that allow you to teleport around the board, or black holes that trap you in space. You'll also notice that the racetrack now has a number of colored spaces. This allows players to skip ahead if they land on the correct corresponding color. And it even features a number of fast track shortcuts as well. You'll notice that players now play with only 3 pawns instead of 4, and those pawns store conveniently in little storage containers beneath the player's start positions. It's a very neat modern iteration of the game that keeps track of score for you with a dynamic light up board, and even celebrates your victory with a little light up victory lap of your corresponding player's colors. Now, I think it's so fascinating to see how far the game has come from 1920 all the way up to 2025. And it's so neat how each different version of the game offers a new flavor for the formula. Now, if you're interested in learning more about Trouble and Sorry, I actually did individual videos comparing their original versions to their newer counterparts. I'll include links in the description below. I will also include links if you'd like to take a look at this retro range reproduction of a 1920 edition of Ludo, which, if you are into classic game art, I cannot recommend this enough. It's a very simple setup, it's very cheap, but I love the game art on this. And if you want to see all of the neat features that the 21st century brings to a classic game from the 6th century, you gotta check out Super Ludo. I gotta say, when I cracked this open, I thought it was just going to be an overly complicated version of Trouble, but it was so fun. The scorekeeping is really nice. I just like the fact that as soon as you get a player to the final position, there's a little button that you just push the pawn into to tell the game that you navigated one home. So the nice thing is you're not limited to only ever having those 4 pawns out. You can keep bringing excess pawns back into the fray to navigate around the board or to aggressively go after other players. It's a lot of fun to use roadblocks to hop on each other and make use of all of the different shortcuts and modifiers that the game has on offer. I can't recommend this enough. I thought it was a blast, and I gotta say, everything that I've gotten from Geekers so far has been superbly built. Now, one thing that I will say was a major drawback to this was the instructions are probably not the best instructions that I've read for Ludo. In fact, I feel like there was some sort of translation error. So though the instruction manual is actually beautifully printed on a lovely paper stock that's very thick and very rich feeling, I kind of had a giggle when I was first reading through the rules because the grammar is a bit cumbersome. But other than that, like I said, the quality of product's great, the fun factor's great. I highly recommend. And if you'd like to take a look at Super Ludo from Geeker, I've actually got a 15% discount code in the description. Get 15% off your purchase, as well as a little affiliate link so you can hop on to Geeker's website. They've got a number of really cool high-tech board games. They've got the Super Decoder, which is a modern edition of Mastermind. One that I really like is called Smart 4. It's like Connect 4 with a whole new dimension added to it. And they've also got the very therapeutic Super Slide puzzle. So visit Geeker's website, check them out. They've got a lot of really great products. I really appreciate them supporting this channel. And hey, I hope you learned a little bit of something from the history of Ludo or Pachisi or Sorry or Trouble. You know, all of them, even Aggravation's kind of a knockoff. There are so many games that are derivative of the Pachisi formula. I'll tell you what, do you have a favorite game that is derivative of the classic Pachisi formula? Comment below and let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Hey, thanks for joining me again, and we'll see you next time.